Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I have 3 decks to show you, as well as 1 engine for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Things that have already come out in the OCG or in the TCG are things that I'm going to show you that will most likely have implications in terms of the metagame for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Let's start off with the Dia Bellstar engine. So, the Dia Bellstar engine centers around Black Witch and its ability to search a level 1 fire monster, which is pretty nice. Now, it doesn't actually do this specifically, but it searches out the spell that does search it out. But basically, the idea is you play Wanted, then, I believe, discards a card, sends a card to the grave. What does it do? During your main phase, you can pay it just adds Dia Bellstar monster from your hand to the deck. This one then discards a card to special summon itself, and then searches out the original Sinful Spoils, which Sinful Spoils can, or original Sinful Spoils can also put another card back, like this guy, which can then search out from the grave, which is pretty nice. But more specifically, this card in particular allows you to special summon a level 1 fire monster from your hand or deck, which is really powerful because Snake Eyes Ash and Snake Eyes Populace are both cards that are level 1 fires, which is pretty good. That's not why you're here. It's able to search out things like Hydrant and Phonics, or Ponix. I don't know how to say this card. Hydrant, we already know in Rescue Ace. You should know this, but Rescue Ace is receiving some more cards, and this is currently a top meta deck in both the OCG and in the TCG, and the reason for that is mostly because of the Dia Bellstar engine, allowing it to get to the Hydrant without utilizing its normal summon, which is very impactful, right? That means you can normal summon things like Impulse or what have you, and that creates a lot of advantage for that deck. So yeah, Hydrant is very good. Being able to special summon that, being able to get additional searches, etc. And then Ponix we'll talk about in the next deck. But yeah, two very good cards. Now let's actually really quick talk about Populace and Ash. Both of these are also pretty nice. On normal, Ash allows you to add another level 1 fire monster from, on normal or special, it adds another level 1 fire monster from your deck to your hand. Meaning, even if you were to special summon this guy instead of summoning the Ponix or instead of summoning the Hydrant, you could then normal summon the other monster. This works a lot better in Fire King specifically, rather than in something like Rescue Ace. Rescue Ace, I think, needs its normal summon a little bit more, so being able to special summon Hydrant just matters a bit more. Then we have Populace, which also allows you... Oops, my bad. Which also allows you to... when it's added to the hand, special summoning itself, and then if it's normal or special, you get to add a Snake Eyes spell trap from your deck to your hand, which is, again, pretty good. This basically means that on the special summon of the Ash off of the original Sinful Spoils, you're then able to search out Populace. Populace can then special summon itself, and that's either a rank 1, a link 2, another monster. It gets you the spell if you need be, right? It does quite a lot, gets you extra discard fodder, and is really powerful just in general. So there's that. And that's all, again, without utilizing the normal, which could then be used on either of these two. Alright, so now let's talk about Fire Kings. Now, I did end up taking this list from a current OCG list. I don't know if this is necessarily what we're going to receive or what could be expected. This is more so just something to keep in mind. Now, I don't know when Fire King is coming to Master Duel, but it will eventually show up at some point, so this is just something to keep in mind. And since it plays so well with the Dia Bellstar engine, which I would imagine is going to show up at around the same time we get the new Rescue Ace support, I imagine this is something to, again, just keep in mind. So, let's start off with the new cards, starting off actually with Phonics. So, Phonics is an actually pretty decent card. If a monster that was originally fire is destroyed by battle or card effect, you could special summon this card from your hand. This is very nice. A lot of the cards want to pop fire monsters, like for example, some of the other cards that we'll talk about in a second. But if you don't know, the whole game plan of Fire Kings is to basically pop their own cards to generate advantage. Whether that's popping the opponent's cards as, after being destroyed, or, destroying destroying them to like float into better guys or what have you, right? So that's actually very, very powerful. And then on normal or special, you can add a Fire King spell trap from your deck to your hand, and then during the next standby phase, after this card was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. So this means that you are able to basically consistently recur its resources, because oftentimes you will be destroying this card, and the reason for that is because of the card that it actually searches, which is Sanctuary. Sanctuary is another new card that allows you to, when activated, place a Fire King spell trap or a Fire King island directly face up into your field zone, which means that it can be ashed, which is pretty good. And then it has a whole bunch of other things that don't really matter. That's the main one. And the reason for that is because Fire King Island, oops, I keep doing this. Fire King Island allows you to, during your main phase, destroy a monster in the hand or on the field, and if you do, add a Fire King monster from your deck to your hand. Meaning, if you were to, for example, normal summon a Phoenix, you could then, or a Ponix, sorry, you could then search out Sanctuary, activate the Fire King Island to then pop the Ponix, and then Ponix during the next during your next standby phase is going to add itself back to hand, so that you can do that again on the following turn after your board gets cleared. Now, Fire King Island also has a secondary effect, which again, I keep clicking the wrong buttons, but it allows you to, or not allows you, but when it leaves the field, when the face-up card is sent to the graveyard or banished, you destroy all monsters you control. Now, this would be a downside if all of these cards didn't also trigger, not all of them, but most of them. So it is annoying, but it's not like the end of the world. We have Arvada, which is a monster negate on the field, but more importantly, if it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target basically a Fire King monster and special summon it, but negate its effects from the grave. So that's pretty good. We also have the new High Avatar Kirin, which is a pretty good card as well, being able to quick effect pop a card on the field or in the hand in order to special summon this card during the main phase, which is pretty good. And then if it's sent to the graveyard, destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Fire King monster from your hand or grave, which is again also pretty good. And then you can also destroy a card on the field, which is again very powerful. Non-target destruction is very good. Also popping additional cards, and notably it's an 8. I'll keep that in mind. Then we have the new boss monster, Sacred Fire King Garunix, which, by the way, I love this artwork. It's fantastic. It looks terrible in, like, the little tiny box that you get in any of the simulators, but it looks pretty good in actual full art. But if your monster / monsters that were originally fire destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard or your hand, which is pretty good. Already, that's good, just putting itself onto the field. But if it's normal or special summon, you could destroy a Fire Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast, which is all of the Fire King cards, and then from your deck or face-up field, and then if you do, this card gains attack until the end of this turn, which is, again, pretty good, because what this basically allows you to do is, if you were to, say, send this card to the graveyard or search it out, like by popping a Ponix, you can then utilize its effect in order to special summon itself. You special summon it, and then you pop something like the Arvada, and then Arvada can then special summon another guy, and then that allows you to utilize those bodies into a myriad of different options. And since all of these happen to be fire, we also can go into things like Promethean Princess to get us additional bodies onto the field, to go into things like Amblo Whale, we can go into Apollosa, we can go into Zelantis as well, to be able to like reset once per turns and stuff like that, which is pretty impactful. Even something like Sunlight Wolf, which can be made pretty easily in this deck, allows you a lot of recursion as well, being able to add back to your hand things like High Avatar Kirin or what have you. It's pretty nice, and yeah, I'm just going to show you some of the test hands and some of what this deck generally does. And then also Bonfire is in the OCG, which is absolutely insane. It's just a straight up add a Pyro monster from your deck to your hand, which adds one of these two, which is why these are seeing more play. And then, as you could tell, there's actually a lot of space for non-engine in here that normally isn't available in a lot of other decks, right? So, you know, being able to play the triple Imperm, being able to play the entire Dia Bellstar engine, which I guess is technically engine, but like being able to also basically do a whole lot of both going first and going second in just the engine is very nice. So, I'll real quick do some test hands for you and show you more or less what it does. Alright, so here we are starting off with a pretty decent hand. Not insane by any stretch of the imagination, but at least we start with the Phoenix. So we can, I keep calling it Phoenix, Ponix. Ponix will then add the Fire Sanctuary, and this is kind of the more basic combo at the very least. Being able to go and grab up your Fire King Island. Fire King Island can then pop the Ponix. Again, I'm not going to pop the cards in hand just because I want to show you the Ponix line. We can then add the Garunix. Garunix is then going to trigger here and going to special summon itself into the field, and then we can pop from the deck. We can pop things like Kieran here. Now Kieran's not the greatest. I'm actually going to pop the Arvada, and then Arvada is going to trigger, and we're going to special summon the Ponix here as well. And now we can go for the SnowiKs here. We're going to send the probably the Ponix to the grave. We're going to send the Ponix, and now we can go for Ash here. Since we did happen to draw this, this would also work if we had happened to draw any of the quick plays or the Witch itself as well. That also would have worked. It just would have required us to discard a card as well. Not really that big of a deal. But now we can go for the Populace. We can special summon out the Populace. We can go Popula, or we can go Ash. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to activate this. Oops, I'm stupid. It's fine. We'll just send those to the graveyard, and then we will special summon out this big guy. Now, the big guy doesn't really do a whole lot. He kind of does. I mean, you target a face-up card in the field, or any of the graveyard placed in the spell and trap card zone. During your opponent's turn, you can target one monster card treated as a continuous spell on the field. Special summon it to your field. If this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can special summon it to level 1 fire monsters in your graveyard. There you go. That's basically it. It's decent, but it's not, like, insane. Anyway, we can now... Let's see. Again, there's like a lot of options. We're going to go for the Sunlight Wolf. This guy now gets to trigger, and we get to go for these two. Out come both of the level 1s. This will trigger Sunlight Wolf. I'm actually going to add back the... probably this guy, right? I don't know. Again, I'm not too familiar with this. But now we can go into our... what's-her-face? Promethean, that's what she's called. We could bring back Arvada, which is actually pretty decent here, given the fact that it is that monster negate. So, yeah, we'll do that. We'll bring back this guy, and then we'll go into our Amblo Whale. Now, obviously, I'm probably messing this up at some point, and there's definitely more that you could do. But honestly, this isn't terrible. I think if I didn't activate the Ash there, I think it could have been a little bit better. Although, I don't know. Hard to say, because the... Flamberg Dragon is still pretty good. I also could have added back like the Populace or something along those lines. I didn't need to necessarily add back this guy. So the cards in hand aren't exactly what I should have. But honestly, this may not look great, but Amblo Whale is pretty strong along with the Promethean Princess in particular. We still have the Callby, we have the Arvada, and then as well, I believe we are adding back the... No, we're not adding back the Phoenix because it wasn't popped properly, but that's beside the point. Not really that big of a deal. We do have the Garunix to special summon it after popping one of the cards in hand for the Arvada effect. And then also as follow-up, we have really, really insane cards. Again, Zelantis is very good, and we have this new Xyz, which I haven't even talked about, but let's real quick talk about it. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can destroy all other monsters on the field. Period. That's it. Just gone. Which is not only going to proc your own cards, but it's also going to destroy the entire opponent's field, which is very, very powerful. Then, on top of that, you can detach to pop a spell trap on the field, and then it gains 500 attack if you do. And then if this card is destroyed while it has material, you can special summon a Fire King monster from your grave up to the number of materials it had. So it's also able to float. It's just a pretty good card in general. So yeah, all in all, a pretty decent list, and more specifically, a deck to look forward to. Now, I don't know how well this is going to do in terms of in Master Duel. I think Master Duel is a lot more high-powered of a format than the OCG, so while it is maybe the best deck in the OCG, I don't necessarily think that it will be the best deck in Master Duel, but it is definitely something to keep on the radar. Let's talk about the second deck, a deck that definitely was top tier in the TCG. And that's Super Heavy Samurai. Now, Super Heavy Samurai in the TCG, I think, does a lot better. And it was top tier, if not the best deck in the format, while it still had this guy legal, which was like 2 weeks or something like that. It was abysmally short in terms of its lifespan. However, in the OCG, it also did fairly well, mostly because of Block Dragon's shenanigans, but after Block Dragon got banned, the deck kind of fell off. It still has access, I believe, to Scarecrow. I could be wrong about that. We could actually check that right now if we go to the OCG. Yeah. They still have Scarecrow. They still have basically... Oh, sorry. Soul Piercer's at 1. I forgot about that one. Soul Piercer's at 1, and I believe at some point Bike was at 2 as well. But even with that being said, the deck still didn't really see a whole lot of play, even when it was with Block Dragon, even when that was a thing. But in the TCG, I mean, you'll see real quick, but look at how many non-engine pieces this deck can play. That's kind of the thing with this deck in particular, is the ability to play a lot of non-engine while still ending on a very, very consistent board, and a very powerful one at that. So let's quickly do the card by card, not the card by card, but let's quickly do the explanation. Starting off with the man of the hour, or the robot of the hour. Anyway, this guy, it's a pendulum, of course. But basically, the pendulum effect is quite impressive. If you have no spells or traps in your graveyard, basically every single one of the super heavy samurais has this gimmick, so do keep that in mind. They also technically attack in a defense position, but who cares? But if there are no spells and traps in your graveyard, you can place one super heavy samurai pendulum monster from your deck, pendulum monster from your deck into the other pendulum zone, then special summon this card. That's it. Now, why is this so important? Well, because it actually also has an important monster effect, which we can't really see because of the way that this is formatted, but we can kind of see it here. If you have no spells and traps, you can discard a monster, special summon a super heavy samurai monster from your deck in defense position. Also, you can special summon super heavy monsters except for super heavy samurai monsters for the rest of its turn. However, that's not the important part. The important part is if this is used as synchro material and added to your extra deck face up, place it into your pendulum zone. Just place it into your pendulum zone. Now this means with an 8 and a 1 scale, this guy is just a 1 scale. That's all he is, for the most part. With an 8 and a 1 scale, this means that you can also, on top of everything else, a pendulum summon, which is kind of crazy, but don't worry, it gets worse. This guy's also a tuner. He's a level 4 tuner that special summons himself. I don't know what Konami was thinking with this one, but that is quite an impressive pendulum. Now, moving on, we have Motorbike, which just searches out a super heavy samurai card, which is going to either search out Soul Piercer or Wakaushi, one of the two. And Soul Piercer, if you don't know, is a non-once per turn super heavy samurai search. That's it. If it goes to the graveyard, if it's sent, or specifically if it's sent from the field to the grave, either as an equip or as an actual monster on field, you can add a super heavy samurai monster from your deck to your hand. Now, notably, this is the best normal summon, and it's not really close. You normal summon this, you send it to the graveyard for the Link 1, Link 1s should be banned, and then you immediately get access to this guy, as well as his whole shenanigans. On top of that, you could potentially search a Motorbike to get an additional card into the graveyard, and then we'll talk about the Link 1. The Link 1 can just discard a card and then target a super heavy samurai monster in your graveyard and special summon it to his zone this card points to, which immediately is pretty good on a Link 1. Now, a lot of people would argue that this is like one of the better Link 1s and it should be, top 5 consideration, and I would disagree with that, and mostly because it by itself is just a Link 1. It's not really doing all that much by itself other than getting cards into the graveyard, and the revive effect is nice, but not nearly as good as some other one. Beside the point. I'm just talking about nonsense here, but very good card, all things considered. Next up, we have the wagon. This is the main combo starter for... I say main combo starter, it can be a main combo starter because it can search Soul Piercer, which is the important part. Then we have things like Soul Peacemaker, which can also kind of be a combo starter, and then a whole bunch of cards that you're going to search out, most notably Scales. Scales, if it can special summon itself. If this card is normal, if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. That's not the important part. The important part is if this card is normal or special summoned, you could target one level 4 or lower super heavy samurai monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. Now, how are we special summoning it? Well, quite frankly, off of the Scarecrow. Now, the thing is, you can like discard a card off of more or less anything. You can get this guy into the graveyard in a myriad of ways, or You could also just Pendulum Summon him. Yeah, that also works. And then he also revives, because, yeah, it's a really weird deck, but you'll see. Let me show you the combos and more or less what it can do. Oh, I should emphasize, it basically ends on Baron Apo. That's it. It just, like, does 1-card combos into Baron Apo. It's fun. Alright, I drew the 1-card combo. So let me show you more or less what it does. So we're going to grab to our hand the Soul Piercer. We're going to normal summon the Soul Piercer. We're going to link it off for our Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow here. We're then going to activate its effect in order to search out the Wakaushi, and then we are going to be able to go and Pendulum Scale that Wakaushi. Wakaushi is then going to activate its effect in order to set the other scale and Pendulum Summon itself. Summon itself. Now we can go and discard a card. It doesn't really matter what we discard. We're going to discard this guy, I guess, and we're going to go for the Soul Piercer. Now, notably, Soul Piercer is a pretty damn good card. So now we can, as you can see, immediately a whole bunch of things open up. Now, we're going to start off here with the Excel Synchro, and you'll see why in a second. So we're going to go for the Excel Synchro. We are then going to activate a whole bunch of effects. We're going to start off here with the Chainlink 1 Excel in order to target a card in the graveyard and reborn it. We're then going to Chain Block, and then Chain Block again, putting this guy as a Chainlink 3 to Chain Block that whole chain in order to just set itself, which is kind of insane. Now we can add the Scales to our hand, and then we can special summon it back at the Bike. Yeah, Bike's pretty good. Now, guess what? Immediately, it's Baron time, baby. That's right, it's Baron. Woo, Baron. Yeah. Coolio. Now we're going to Pendulum Summon. Oh, shoot, I activated an effect. I didn't mean to activate. I meant to Pendulum Summon. There we go. Yeah, that guy also searches cards. Hopefully I'm not locked at this point. Let me actually read this real quick. Nope, okay. Anyway, Scales is going to activate, and we can grab back another Soul Piercer. And then, normally, there's two ways of doing this. You can either go Ancient Gear Ballista, or you can go for the rank 4. Either way, doesn't really matter. This list that I found is playing the Ancient Gear Ballista. So we're going to go for the... we're actually going to go Chainlink 1 Ballista, Chainlink 2 Soul Piercer. That's right, we've gotten 3 Soul Piercer effects in the same turn. We're actually going to add here... there's a bunch of things that I can add. I'm going to add Stealth. And then we add the Box. Now, Box is going to activate since it was added to the hand in order to search out Tunneler. And now Tunneler has the ability to special summon itself, as well as, you know, search a whole bunch of cards. We're going to tribute off this guy, and then we're going to special summon himself. And then we can go for a Cleafork Genius. We can also go for this guy, I believe, which is just, like, special summons himself for, like, no reason. And now we can go for a 3-net Apo. And then I believe Tunneler has the ability to shuffle back a whole bunch of cards. So we're going to shuffle back 1, 2, 3, 4 Scales. Yeah, sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to shuffle all 5 of those back, and we're going to draw 2 additional cards. And hey, look, we drew into a Regulus. We still have the material, and now we get to go for the Regulus. And here is our end board. Now, I also can still utilize this guy's effect, which also special summons itself. You attach him to a super heavy samurai monster, and then equip it, and then add special summon him from the spell and trap card zone, which is, again, just another guy on field. Now, I didn't happen to need to do that this time because I ended up searching out the Stealthy instead, which basically does the exact same thing, because why not? So, yeah, I still have 2 hand traps, as well as the ability to full combo again on the following turn with Karakuri, Divicarnate, with, well, Gearbox is, you know, here chilling. But, yeah, and then I still have Pendulums. So, you know, very fun. Now, here's the biggest problem with this. You can't run spells and traps. That's it. That's the biggest problem with this deck. Which means that in something like the OCG, or more specifically in Master Duel, something like Maxi really does hurt this deck. There isn't like a halfway measure for this deck besides maybe play Baguska and like Baguska, you know? And then that kind of does stuff. And it also does have a bit of a hard time going second, mostly because it does... I mean, a lot of the interactions can be pretty simple to stop in terms of like just imperming or what have you. While it can play through hand traps, playing through targeted interactions from the opponent, like for example a Mirror Jade even, can be quite painful. Now, it's not that big of a deal, but I think it's mostly the Max C. Now, do I think that this deck is going to be good? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to be the best deck? Probably not. I do think that the Max C and the lack of consistency, not consistency, but the lack of, like, a defined metagame, I think does hurt this deck a bit. Also, not being able to play things like Called By or Crossout does hurt as well, because that means that other such hand traps you're going to have to play through them without necessarily being able to just immediately stop them, right? Especially, most notably, Maxi. You're just going to be playing less cards to out Maxi. So, there's that. Anyway, let's hop on to the next deck, and a deck that I thoroughly enjoy. And that deck is Unchained. Now, if you don't know about Unchained, its whole gimmick is similar to Fire King's, where popping its own cards gives them additional advantage. But it also pops your own cards, or your cards, I should say, the opponent's cards. So there's that, but it does function in a similar fashion. Now, the Unchained cards in particular received 2 new cards that really did help the strategy, as well as, well, technically 3 new cards. 2 new main deck monsters, as well as Yama. We'll talk about Yama in a second, but let's talk about Shavara as well as Shiyama. Now, these are 2 very, very good cards. We're going to start out with Shavara here, which during the main phase, if this card is in your hand, quick effect, you could target one fiend or face down card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card. And then while it's in the face of zone, or in the face of monster zone, you can only go into fiend monsters. And then if it's sent to the graveyard as well, you get to set an Unchained spell trap directly from the deck. This is wildly powerful. Not only is it a good monster in terms of attack and defense and all of that stuff, it is a quick effect pop, which is decent, but it's a quick effect summon, it's a quick effect pop. It allows you to trigger your own spells and traps while then also setting them. And notably, it is a Fiend level 6, which we'll get into in a second. Then we have Shiyama. We're only running one of this, and it's because it's basically our special summon target. And the reason is it doesn't special summon itself. Unlike Shavara, Shiyama has to be special summoned off of something else. Now, notably, this is fine, because you can target one card you control, destroy it, then you can target a spell trap on the field, and, then you can destroy a spell trap on the field. Sorry, I read that wrong. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target a fiend monster or a face down card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. Now, notably, this is still pretty good. It can technically special summon itself from the grave, and that does come up. But more importantly, it is also able to be special summoned from either of any of this set cards being popped, or by any of these guys being popped as well, which then allows you access to a rank 6 in Wave High King Caesar. Now, if you don't know what this card is, you can detach material from this card, negate the activation of a special summon effect. Any effect that includes the effect to special summon a monster can be negated non-once per turn. That's pretty good. And this means that the deck's basic strategy is to summon out this guy, which isn't honestly all that bad. Now, there is a version that plays more of a DDD-centric style, but honestly, I don't really favor that version. I do feel like this is a better version overall. So this is the list that I ended up choosing. The other version's a little bit more bricky and requires more like one-ofs that just you don't want to draw, so there's that. But overall, it's a pretty simple strategy. You basically utilize things like Shavara or Aruha in order to pop your spells and traps, in order to then go into the High Wave King by special summoning both of these guys. However, there's another part to this puzzle. If it was just that, it wouldn't be all that good. But then came, Unchained Soul Lord of Yama, which just requires 2 fiend monsters. Now, if you know that restriction, or really any restriction that just requires any 2 monsters, immediately Tour Guide of the Underworld becomes incredibly impactful. Because guess what? Off of any normal summon, now you just get to freely go into Unchained Soul of Yama. And again, if you recall, this is a quick effect, meaning you can dodge Imperm with ease. Oh, fun. Now, notably, Unchained Soul of Yama is very good. If this card is special summoned, you can add an Unchained monster from your deck or grave to your hand, and then if a card is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card in order to special summon a fiend from the grave or the hand. Then you can destroy a card you control, triggering another effect to then special summon another guy. Yeah, I think you get the point, right? It's lots of special summoning similarly by popping cards. Again, similar to the Fire King. All in all, a very good strategy. And with cards like Unchained Soul of Rage, linking away a monster your opponent controls into additional things like Unchained Soul of Anguish, or even Abomination, which is crazy. This just pops like 4 cards sometimes. Not all the time, but it can. Yeah, it's very good. If a card on the field is destroyed by card effect, except Unchained Abomination, you can target a card on the field, destroy it. When another monster is destroyed by battle, you can target a card on the field, destroy it. During the end phase, you can target a card in the field, destroy it. Yay. Yeah, it's a lot of destruction. And all in all, this deck is pretty consistent. So let's hop into that test hand and show you more or less what this deck does. Oh, also notable, lots of extra decks, or lots of non-engine space, which is pretty important. Alright, this hand more or less does it. This is why Pot of Prosperity should be banned, but here we go. We're going to banish a whole bunch of cards that I probably don't need, like, for example, this guy, and maybe this one, and that one, sure. I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be banishing. Okay, Tour Guide. Here we go. Perfect. We ended up seeing Tour Guide. So we're going to go and go ahead and normal summon the Tour Guide. Tour Guide effect is going to activate, and then we're going to special summon out the Fiendish Rhino. Fiendish Rhino is just the best target for the Tour Guide at this point. Then we can link these two off into your boy Yama. Yama effects, chain link 1, chain block it with the Fiendish Warrior Rhino, and then we are able to send, I believe this sends, right? I think we send this guy. And then we add it to the hand. Since we already have the trap in the hand, we're going to grab the Shavara. If we don't have the trap, I think grabbing Aruha... No, because Aruha would require a normal summon. But if you didn't have to use your normal summon to get into the Yama, adding the Aruha is pretty good as well. I believe now this is probably the card we want to activate, being able to... You can target a fiend or face down card you control straight, and if you do, special summon this card. Okay, we're going to start off with this Shavara here. We're going to pop the back row. We're going to go back row is now going to special summon a guy. Oh, we could have special summoned the A-Bomb from hand. Yeah, not really that big of a deal. We go for the Aruha, I believe, here. Oh, I should have gone... Oh, I misplayed. Not that big of a deal, because we could just pop here. Go for this guy. Activate the Aruha. Special summon out the Sarama. Coolio. Sarama effect is going to target this guy. And then I believe we pop the Yama. And then we'll go Abominable Unchained Soul, special summon. We're not going to pop. Then we can go for this guy. And I'm sure I'm doing this wrong. And then we can go for this guy. And we're done. That's it. That's the whole combo. However, what this lacks in terms of an actual board, it makes up for in recursion. A lot of the stuff actually is able to activate in the graveyard. Like, for example, the reason I wanted to get the Yama into the grave is because it actually has a very good graveyard effect. Being able to banish it when a card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you're banishing it and then special summoning a fiend from grave, which can, trigger the Abominable Unchained Soul, which I happen to draw here. Or, on top of that, if you are able to also add, for example, a Shavara to your hand, you now have the ability to Shavara also pop a card to dodge an effect, which is also pretty nice. You also have this guy's ability as well, which comes up occasionally, but if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a Dark Contract card from your deck to your hand. Now, notably, this list isn't playing that Dark Contract, but it is something that a lot of other people do end up playing, and is definitely still very good, adding that additional follow-up as well. And then this guy as well, being able to link off into the the Unchained Soul of Anguish, which is also pretty good because this does similar things. Target a face-up card your opponent controls, link into a Dark Link monster, which then allows you to go into, again, the A-Bomb, which can then pop additional cards, and again, that's just very, very good. And then this guy as an extra insurance. If it's popped, you're able to special summon another guy. If it's not popped while it's set, you are able to just special summon another guy. There's also the other trap, which can pop an additional card as well as one of your cards, which again, just gets you off to the races. And then on top of that, being able to run those hand traps, it really is just one of those things that just, one, it plays through hand traps so very well. It can dodge hand traps, it can interact with hand traps favorably, like Ash Blossom it doesn't really care about. Things like Ghost Spell even, it can play through pretty well. And because of the attributes as well in the graveyard, we can see, we can see that these two in particular don't happen to be light or dark, which means that things like Bestials aren't very good, but they're good against like the other stuff in the, so yeah, it's just like, it happens to line up pretty well, and it was the best. It's still kind of arguable, it's not the best deck right now in the TCG, but it was the best deck for a time in the TCG, and is still a very competent deck in the TCG. So there's that last deck to basically take note of. And yeah, that's basically the 4 biggest things to make note of when it comes to, well, I say the 4 biggest, but 4 in particular. These are the 4 things that I wanted to take note of. I still have more that we'll probably take a look at. But yeah, honestly, all of these decks are pretty good and are things to look out for that aren't already in the game or that aren't really even played in the game currently. Like, Unchained basically sees no play. Same with Super Heavy Samurai. Even though I don't think Unchained's as bad as it is, or as bad as like people make it out to be. Actually, technically, all of these are not new. They're all just additional, I guess, new cards for a existing archetype. But even with that being said, there's still decks to look out for in the upcoming metagame. So hopefully you did indeed enjoy this episode, and if you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. And I thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.